Okay, let's jump right in. Today, we're doing a deep dive into a really interesting piece of writing we've got here. It's this document, chapter 11.pdf.
Mm-hmm.
And our mission really is to unpack what this text says about happiness, specifically getting into the idea that it's not just, one thing.
Right, not monolithic.
Exactly, that there are different kinds of happiness. We want to explore the three main types it talks about and figure out why the text says recognizing and sort of nurturing all of them is so key for really thriving.
Absolutely. And the core idea here, which the document credits to Eric Greitens, is just that happiness isn't just one flavor. He suggests these three primary forms,
Okay.
and he uses this analogy, which I think works quite well, comparing them to primary colors.
Ah, like red, yellow, blue.
Exactly. The basic colors you need to mix to get the whole spectrum. These are the building blocks of happiness, according to this view.
Okay, I like that. Distinct, but they combine for something more. So it's the first primary color here. What's the first type?
Well, the first one laid out is the happiness of pleasure.
Pleasure. Okay.
And it's pretty much what it sounds like, largely sensory. It's the most, maybe immediate type, the one we recognize easily.
Right, that physical hit almost, instantaneous. The document gives some good examples, actually. Like just how good a meal tastes when you're really properly hungry.
Yeah, that specific satisfaction.
Or that smell, the air right after it rains, that clean smell.
Oh, definitely.
Or even just waking up warm and cozy in bed. Simple stuff, really. All about the senses.
Exactly. It's that present moment joy felt physically. Okay, so then the second form the document talks about is the happiness of grace.
Grace. Okay.
And it basically defines this one as gratitude.
Gratitude. Huh. That feels quite different from, just sensory pleasure. How does the text describe that kind of happiness?
Yeah, it's less about getting something right now and more about, well, acknowledging what you already have.
Yeah.
Or just being thankful for certain moments.
Uh-huh.
The document paints this picture like looking over and seeing someone you love sleeping next to you and just having that quiet, spontaneous thought, thank you.
Ah, okay. A reflective thing.
Exactly. Or deliberately taking stock, not focusing on what's missing,
Yeah.
but appreciating what is good in your life.
Right.
And the text even notes it can be that feeling of sort of awe or humility when you connect with something bigger than yourself.
So we've got the immediate physical happiness of pleasure, and then this quieter, reflective happiness of grace tied to gratitude. What's number 3?
Okay, this is where it shifts gears a bit, I think. The third type is the happiness of excellence.
Excellence. Okay.
And this isn't about a fleeting feeling or even just a quiet reflection. This happiness, the text argues, comes from the pursuit, actively pursuing something great, something meaningful.
And that this is interesting because the document really stresses it's not just about getting there, right? Not just the finish line winning the thing, finishing the book.
Right, not the moment of arrival on the mountaintop.
Yeah. It's the process. It says something like falling in love with the hike itself, the journey towards the goal.
Precisely. And the text connects this straight to things like meaningful work.
Mm-hmm.
Finding that state of flow where you're just completely absorbed
Mm-hmm.
and really
Yes.
pursuing a purpose.
Yeah.
It's this kind of effort, this pursuit that the document claims actually forges your identity, builds character.
Wow.
It's about channeling your energy deliberately towards something bigger than just, fleeting wants.
Okay. And the document's really clear about how these three relate, isn't it? Back to the color thing.
Yes, very clear. It insists they're all necessary. You can't just swap them out. One can't replace another.
Right. Like you said, primary colors.
Exactly. If you only have red and blue paint, you can make purple, sure.
Mm-hmm.
But you're never going to get green without yellow.
Ah, I see.
And the text suggests it's the same here. If you're missing one of these core happiness types, a whole range of other, maybe more complex happiness experiences just become impossible. It argues that really thriving is almost off the table unless you cultivate all three.
Which brings up a really crucial warning the text gives about trying to substitute. What happens if we try and fill the gap of one type with another? Like, say, trying to get the feeling of excellence from just pleasure.
Yeah, and that's where the danger comes in, according to this source. It gives the example of someone maybe not pursuing that happiness of excellence. They're not engaged in that tough, meaningful work.
Right.
And instead, they try to fill that void by just chasing pleasure, maybe drinking too much or something similar. The text is really blunt about why this fails.
Is this where that quote comes in?
Yes, it says quite starkly, lots and lots of red will never make blue. Pleasures will never make you whole.
Wow. Okay. Pleasures will never make you whole. That hits hard. Let's dig into that a bit more, especially this excellence happiness. The document calls it the work of emotional resilience.
It does. And it positions it as, well, maybe not higher in a simple sense, but perhaps more foundational or complex.
Mm.
It's linked to ideas maybe like Maslow's hierarchy, that self-actualization level.
Okay.
And the key is, it's not spontaneous. It's described as needing measured, deliberate, consistent effort.
And I guess that consistency, that deliberate part, is why it's tough, why people might avoid it. It sounds hard.
It is hard. The text doesn't sugarcoat it. The discomfort is real. And crucially, the payoff isn't immediate, not like the happiness of pleasure.
Right.
Think about the example it uses those first few runs when you're training for a marathon.
Oh, yeah. Awful.
Right, your lungs are burning, you might feel sick. There's no instant feel-good there, not in that moment of struggle.
Definitely not pleasure. So where does the reward come from then, according to the text? How does that happiness emerge?
The reward, it argues, builds over time. It's incremental. You start to develop skill. Maybe you start to actually imagine achieving the thing. And eventually, through sticking with it, through that consistent effort, you actually start to, as you said, fall in love with the process itself, not just the distant goal. That engagement is the happiness of excellence.
That makes sense. It also brings in this interesting idea about context, doesn't it? How our situation changes how we perceive these happiness types.
Absolutely. Context is huge. Someone who hasn't eaten for 3 days, the happiness they get from a simple piece of bread, that pleasure, is going to be incredibly intense, far more than for someone who eats regularly.
Their context just amplifies that sensory experience.
Exactly. And the text applies the same logic to excellence. If someone hasn't really experienced pushing through something tough with that kind of sober, consistent resolve it talks about,
Right, not just a quick burst of enthusiasm.
then they might not even know the kind of deep satisfaction that comes on the other side of that sustained effort. They lack the context to fully appreciate that specific kind of fulfillment.
Which leads to that striking concept the document uses, being colorblind.
Yes, I found that really powerful. The idea that many people are essentially colorblind to the full richness of their own lives because they're missing one of these fundamental happiness colors.
Colorblind to happiness, how does that actually look? What are the examples?
Well, the text gives examples like people who say they want to be authors. They dream of the finished book, the acclaim maybe,
Right.
but they have zero interest in the actual discipline required. Sitting down, writing for hours, day after day, potentially for years.
They want the glory, but not the grind.
Pretty much. Or people who want to be seen as legends, geniuses, masters in some field, but they just don't value the sheer consistent effort, the thousands of hours of practice needed.
Ah, okay. They want the peak, but they don't want to do the climbing. They haven't fallen in love with the hike of excellence.
Exactly right. And that loops back to how the text ultimately reframes happiness, especially through this lens of excellence. It argues happiness isn't just about, amazing sensory experiences or even just feeling grateful.
What is it then, fundamentally?
In a really deep sense, it's also about peace of mind, but a specific kind. The peace that comes from knowing, really knowing, that you are actively working towards becoming the person you want to be, the person you feel you need to be.
So pursuing excellence isn't just about what you achieve externally, it's about building who you are internally.
That's the core argument.
Yeah.
The biggest payoff from pursuing the happiness of excellence isn't necessarily the accomplishment itself, though, that matters. The real prize is identity.
Identity.
Yeah. Building a strong, resilient sense of self. And that sense of self, the text suggests, is something you carry into everything else. It acts like a, what do you call it? A technicolor pigment.
Technicolor pigment. I like that.
Yeah. Making the whole spectrum of your life, including how you experience pleasure, how you feel grace, more vivid, more alive.
Okay. So wrapping this up, we've explored this framework from chapter 11.pdf. 3 core types of happiness: pleasure sensory, immediate; grace reflective, gratitude based; and excellence demanding, identity building through pursuit.
All distinct, all necessary, and according to this text, all needed together to really live fully, to build that strong sense of self.
So maybe the final thought for you listening is this. Think about how deliberately making space for and committing to that happiness of excellence, the hard stuff, the disciplined pursuit that builds who you are.
Yeah, how might that actually change the way you experience and appreciate the simpler happiness of pleasure, or those profound moments of grace? Could tackling the climb, as the text suggests, make the view from everywhere else in your life just richer, more vibrant, more colorful?